went into this room where we meet the candidates for the first time. I was shocked. After looking at the candidates, I said, no, this looks tough. It's not going to be easy. Lara, Priyanka, Gayatri, Diya and me held our hands together. And again, contestant number 1 walked out with heart pounding out of my chest. And we all looked at the heavens and we said, oh my God, one more of that torturous round to go through. And then is when we get to know. It was the year 2000. I was standing on this massive stage in a Pune stadium filled with more than 10,000 people. And on that stage with me was Lara Dutta, Priyanka Chopra, Diya Mirza, Gayatri, and we were the top 5 finalists of Miss India 2000. We finish our question answer round and we go backstage to wait for the results. And what we get to hear is that, guys, there is another tiebreaker. You are not done yet. I come from the Indian fashion industry. What I consider my USP is that I, in my own humble way, changed the way modeling is perceived as a profession. Let me give you a few examples. Modeling was always considered to be a short-term profession. And I proved that it can be a long-term profession if you know how to go about it. Modeling was always considered to be something which is not really relatable to having a stable family life. But I proved over 20 years that you can have a very balanced life with the profession and a family very beautifully. Modeling was also considered not to be a respectable profession in many mindsets and places. But I proved that you can command respect by conducting yourself in a manner that it becomes an inspirational story for others. Hi everyone, I'm Lakshmi Rana, one of India's top supermodels and an entrepreneur, founder of Wildebeest Talent Camp, an inclusive platform for training models and pageant aspirants, as also we are a transformational grooming platform. In this talk, I will share with you a few secrets of the modeling career that will help you go ahead in this field. My story started in a small town called Maligaon, which is where I was born. There's a place near Guwahati in Assam. I come from a service background. Both my parents were from the army. So I grew up in a very normal childhood phase. However, with a lot of discipline and a strict routine. By the time I was 11 years old, my height had shot up to 5 feet 10 inches. And I was standing out like a sore thumb from amongst my peers, who were literally half my height. And I used to be called various names like giraffe, khamba, oot, and sometimes even Amitabh Bachchan. I mean, it might sound funny now, but for an even 11-year-old child at that point of time, it was harrowing. And it was so bad that I one day went up to my mother and I told her, Mom, I think I'm suffering from a disease called gigantism. And it is a serious problem and I think we should go to a doctor. And that's when my parents realized that, that she's probably being subjected to a kind of bullying and she needs to be counseled. They sat me down and said, Beta, a good height runs in our family and it is nothing to worry about. So I moved into this new school in Dehradun. It's a completely new environment for me. It's a new place. Most of my classmates were speaking in Hindi. And that was a difficult language for me at that point of time, not very fluent in it. And I'm there expecting to make friends and get comfortable. And the first thing when I enter this class, I hear is this, oh, look, there is an Assamese camel that has come in. I looked at the class and I stopped and I paused. And I went back to my, went to my seat. And I realized at that point of time that there is no amount of bullying that would be enough for me to kind of, step up and take a stand for myself. So I realized that I'm going to stop that bullying then and there. And I was determined to make a footprint in that new environment. And that is exactly what I did. The more bullying I faced, the stronger I became. And the more they used to talk about my height, the straighter I stood. There was no looking back after that. So I was a very studious child, almost nerdy, in fact, and I was studying for engineering at that point of time. I remember my Masi coming up to me and saying, Lakshmi, there is this Navy Queen contest happening in Dehradun, and there's somebody who's dropped out. Can you please fill up that little, vacant seat? I told her, "Nahi, Masi, I can't do it. I was not into any kind of glamour world, or any kind of aspiration that I had was never anywhere around the glamour world." And she blackmailed me into it. And I went in for the Navy Queen contest. So I wore a sari and a little pair of heels, looking about 6 feet 2 inches tall. And they asked me to walk, and I walked. There was no any kind of preparation beforehand. I had not taken any walking classes or anything like that. I walked my normal walk. And they asked me a simple question by the end of the contest. And when we were standing all together in a group of 10, they announced my name as the winner. I couldn't believe it. I had no idea what I had done right to win it. So it was something which my parents were like really happy about. And they looked at, and I remember my mom looking at me with pride in her eyes and saying that, "Oh my God, I'm just amazed that you could have achieved this." And for me, had no clue. I had no clue why I won it. And post that, the local event companies in Dehradun started approaching my mother for all kinds of fashion shows and stuff. And my mother told me that nothing doing. You either approach modeling or this field from the highest platform, which was Miss India during those days, or you come right back to studies. I said, okay, I'm going to give it a shot. So I got my portfolio done, which was just a few pictures, send it out, and I was selected for Miss India. I had no time to prepare. I had no resources. There were no concept of grooming schools in Dehradun at that point of time. So I packed my bags, and I'll tell you what it contained. It contained 2 pairs of denims and a few t-shirts, 1 pair of heel, and hardly any makeup. That was the basic that I carried to Bombay. So when I reached Bombay, very excited, because this was my first time out of Dehradun by myself, I went into this room where you meet the candidates for the first time. And I was shocked to see a fabulous, beautiful set of well-groomed, articulate, beautiful set of candidates. After looking at the candidates, I said, this looks tough. It's not going to be easy. In any case, in the next coming month, we were being trained by some of the best talents of the country. And each class was a fabulous learning process. There were girls who were extremely competitive, and there were girls who were really nice and, very, very friendly. And we started making a little bit of a group within our own group of 31. It was a fabulous batch. Even people from the Miss India organization would come up to us and said that this is one of the best batches that they have ever seen. So we had Bhavna Sharma, who was already modeling. We had Tulip Joshi, who became a Bollywood star later. We had Priyanka Chopra, Lara Dutta, Diya Mirza. We had many, many other women who were extremely accomplished. We had a couple of medical students who were there as contestants as well. So can you imagine the entire set of the contestants and how talented they were? And that at that point of time, if you might have a height which is 5'11", you still feel that, do you have a chance in something in a room full of talents like this? So amongst the group of contestants, I would constantly keep getting these positive feedbacks about my walk. And I realized that it was all because of perhaps my army background, wherein my father used to give me a dhap on my back if I would slouch. And the posture came in very, very naturally to me. And that is what most of the ramp walk trainers teach you, and that is posture correction, which I already had. I think that played as a plus point. As and when we started training for the final day, I remember we went through all kinds of physical training. We were on a strict diet. Every contestant was practicing their question answers, and the build-up was happening. we were all getting pressurized slowly and steadily. Our heartbeats were going up because of the fact that the day was approaching. But I realized my good fortune that I had nothing, I had no resources, but everything was taken care. The clothing, the gown, the outfits, everything was taken care by Miss India. So on the final day, when we are all there backstage and we're all ready in our first outfit, and we were to walk the ramp, and I was contestant number 1. And every single time, it was my name that would be announced first. One day before the final contest, there was a pre-judging round, wherein the judges get to meet each contestant and have like about 3 minutes each with each contestant. And we had judges like Shah Rukh Khan, Prahlad Joshi. We had, if I remember, this is so long back, we had Juhi Chawla. We had so many of these biggies sitting in this semicircle. And there was this one ramp in a giant room wherein each contestant walked and started going for interviews with the judges. At that point of time, I wasn't very nervous because there wasn't any audience. I was okay. I was contestant number 1, always the first one to be called out. And I did my thing, I did my interview, and I left. But on the final day, the nerves took over. The audience was almost 10,000 in that stadium. And I feel, if I remember correctly, the first outfit was a swimsuit outfit. And again, contestant number 1 walked out with heart pounding out of my chest. But I remember as soon as I stepped onto that stage, it just went away and I took over the stage. And that's the point I realized that maybe this is what I wanted to be all along. And this is where I am supposed to be, on that stage. So the first round happened and we went backstage, exhilarated. We had just walked that ramp and also nervous. We had no time because we had to change into the next outfit, but only after the top 15 were announced. So we were all sitting there together waiting for the top 15 to be announced. And the Miss India, one of the Miss India representatives, comes in to the backstage green room with a list in her hand. And she starts announcing the names. It was in random order. And I think my name was announced second last in the list. And the top 15 got up and we ran to change into the next outfit. This is what our instructions were. And I looked back at the ones who didn't make it, and I could see the disappointment in their faces. My heart sank a little bit, but there was no time to think. And I had, by then, dropped my hopes, and I said, let's just calm down here. I think I've made it this far. I'm happy, and let's see what happens next. In the top 5, when Rahul Khanna and Malaika Arora, the first name that they announced was contestant number 1. And I have this footage still saved up on my phone where I hugged Priyanka and gave a kiss to Lara and went on stage for the top 5 round. One by one, we were asked questions. And the nerves kind of got to me because at that point of time, I realized, oh my God, I have a real chance to make it. We went backstage and all 5 of us, Lara, Priyanka, Gayatri, Diya, and me, held our hands together and waited in anticipation, wishing each other all the very best. Because at that point of time, you don't know what, the destiny was not in our hands, it was in the judges' hands. And then is when we get to know that there is a tiebreaker. And we all looked at the heavens and we said, oh my God, one more of that torturous round to go through. And the pressure only built up. However, we went back on stage and we were asked this final question. I remember Shah Rukh Khan asking me a question. And I did my best. And I feel that pressure had got to me by that point of time. We finished a question on the final round, and all 5 of us were called on stage, and we all again held our hands, and the results were announced. Miss India 2000 was a platform which brought me straight from a person who always aspired to be a fighter pilot when she was a child, to a profession of modeling, because I got into India Fashion Week that year, which was where I always wanted to be. So I got into India Fashion Week, and from then started off my journey as a model. I also remember my Navisha, my little daughter, was born in Mau. This is in Madhya Pradesh. And I was 18 kgs overweight when she was born. The kind of insecurities I was going through at that point of time, because I had a glorious career in the modeling by that time. Would I be able to go back to it? Would I be able to perhaps look the same? Would I be able to, lose all that fat that I had gained during the pregnancy? There were so many insecurities. And to overcome that, the fighter that I was, I took up the challenge of India Fashion Week, which was to happen 4 months after my girl was born. It was a huge challenge. And at that point of time, my husband took control. My family was like pillars of support. And I remember eating only boiled chicken and vegetables for 3 months to get back to shape. And my husband taking me out for runs morning and evening. And guess what? By the time, around 10 days before India Fashion Week was to start, I still had to lose 1 inch on my waist. And I managed to do it with all that discipline and hard work. But once I walked that stage after just 4 months of delivery, and I don't advise people to do that, it just completely changed the way I looked at myself. When I came back home from India Fashion Week, I felt like a hero. And it felt so good. For these 20 years in the fashion industry, I have seen the best and the worst of the fashion world as a model. The fashion industry in today's times is a very, very organized space. But in many pockets, modeling is a very disorganized space. The kind of problems that I saw models facing in the industry was youngsters coming into this industry without absolutely any education. They did not know what to expect. So they didn't know how to react to certain situations and what they deserved. Models being, approached by spurious organizations who perhaps wanted money to launch them into the industry. There was a lot of body shaming practices that used to happen, wherein they would say things like, your bust is too big, you have thick arms, you're too short, you're too thin, you're too dark. And I used to look at all of this and I would absorb it, and I felt that there has to be something that needs to be done about it. So I got onto a lot of news channels and forums talking about the situation as to why modeling and what is the beauty perception that our country or society as a whole should have. What are we telling our young kids? That you are getting inspired by an industry which only showcases tall, thin people. And it is bound to happen that they go through mental problems and body shaming, and body shaming becomes a norm in everyday life. There was a lot of monetary exploitation that used to happen during the modeling days. I would see freshers getting paid half the amount that I got paid 20 years back for the same job. This is where my journey as an entrepreneur started. It came from a place of passion, a place where I wanted to give back to the modeling industry and make a small difference in the way models were perceived and taken care of by the industry. And slowly and steadily, after a lot of mistakes, I managed to build a team together, which today has produced more than 200 students, who some of which have walked the ramp with me in the last Fashion Week, which is just about a month back. And they all know how to conduct themselves, how to charge an amount, what a good collaboration is, and how to conduct themselves in this industry. So I feel that is my success story. And the few takeaways that I have for all the youngsters who are listening to this is, number one, that beauty is subjective. If you don't consider yourself to be beautiful, you can be rest assured nobody else will. I'm from the fashion industry, and the real story is at the backstage. It's not on the ramp, it's not in pictures, because there is an entire team of people who make us look the way we do. Number 2, it is important to respect yourself, and which is why I tell my students that do not ever do anything which makes you feel used or makes you feel that somebody's done a favor for you. Number 3, it's a slow and steady process. You first have to work on yourself before expecting any kind of good work in return. So this is why I have created this platform wherein we teach the youngsters to learn communication skills, learn the business of modeling. Apart from the skill sets, which is just about learning how to walk and posing, it's more to do with being comfortable in your own body, being comfortable in your skin. And that is the confidence that will show in your work, in every aspect of life that you get into. For a lot of you who wants to get into this beautiful field of modeling and glamour, you have to remember that glamour is just a word. It is not the reality. The reality is that there is a lot of effort that goes into it to achieve it. You know, the field of modeling is not something which is easy. It comes with a lot of hard work. There are long hours of standing and working, and there's a lot of patience that is required. There is a lot of competition that is there. And the only thing that takes you through all this competition and makes you successful is your own unique identity. And that is the unique identity that we all must work on to succeed. Thank you very much for being a part of my journey and the learnings that I've had in this industry.
Josh Talks is now a Spotify exclusive podcast. The audio version of our talks will be available only on Spotify. If you like this video and you like to listen to more inspiring stories like this, please follow the Josh Talks podcast only on Spotify.
अगर आप इस टॉक के एंड तक पहुंच चुके हैं तो मैं आपको जोश टॉक्स का एक दूसरा रूप भी दिखाना चाहता हूं, जिससे मैं काफ़ी देर से जुड़ा हुआ हूं और मुझे बहुत बहुत ज़्यादा पसंद है कि वो क्या कर रहे हैं। जोश टॉक्स ने एक नया ऐप लॉन्च किया है जिसका नाम है जोश स्किल्स। अब वो नया नहीं रहा, काफ़ी टाइम से है, लाखों लोग उसको अब यूज़ करते हैं। और जोश स्किल्स पे आप अपनी ज़िंदगी के लिए कोर्सेज ढूंढ सकते हैं। वो कोर्स नहीं जो आपको फिजिक्स, केमिस्ट्री, कॉमर्स, बिजनेस स्टडीज पढ़ाएंगे, वो कोर्सेज जो आपकी जिंदगी में आपको कैसे जीना चाहिए वो सिखाएंगे। मैंने खुद जो स्किल्स पे बहुत सारे कोर्सेज बनाए हैं, पब्लिक स्पीकिंग पे, इमोशनल क्राइसिस कैसे हैंडल किया जाए, अपनी पर्सनालिटी कैसे डेवलप की जाए। हर एक कोर्स में डेली क्विजेज हैं, एक्सरसाइजेज हैं, एक बहुत ही खूबसूरत कम्युनिटी है जो आपको सपोर्ट करेगी, आपको इनकरेज करेगी। आज ही डाउनलोड करें जोश स्किल्स का ऐप और उनके कोर्सेज एक्सप्लोर करके अपनी जिंदगी को आगे बढ़ाएं।